is a game where anything could happen for me. Southampton versus Chelsea. Southampton winless. I can't remember the last time they won. 1-1 draw last week got us to push away at Leeds. And they're at plus 340 against the Chelsea side. Got beat 4-1 at home to Premier League newcomers Brentford. Then they play Real Madrid. They were all gassed out. They got beat 3-1. But Chelsea is still at minus 120. That is either a gift or a trap, because normally it'd be like minus 185. The draw is at plus 280. The under over is at 2.5. I think the over 2.5 at minus 105 is a way to look. Stinch, you can start us off here, because Southampton, they are mid-table mediocrity. And Chelsea, I just do not know what I'm getting. I think the gas tank is emptied.
Yeah, potentially. It's difficult. I know they've had those two strange defeats, but last season, for example, they got beaten 5-2 at home by West Brom. Yeah. Maybe it's football, like Karim Benzema's goals, his hat-trick. It all came from very low-quality chances, but it's just the fact that he's obviously, world-class striker. Chelsea themselves, they had 20 shots in the game, so I don't necessarily think they've, given up or whatever. I just think that Chelsea price to me stood out when you compare it to what the price they normally go off at against similar teams. So they were minus 150 at Palace, minus 150 at Brighton, minus 140 at Villa, minus 125 at Wolves. Same price at West Ham and Leicester, minus 150 at Brentford. So for me, minus 120, I just think is too big. When they went to Southampton before the pandemic under Lampard against Hasenhüttl, they were minus 150. And that was a team featuring Kepa, Zuma, Willian, and they won 4-1. And the year before that, they were minus 175 and they won 3-0. So I'm just going to play the price here and take Chelsea. I know they have struggled the last two games, but against Madrid, they didn't start Lukaku, Werner, Ziyech, Kovacic or Alonso. So I imagine a majority of them will come in this weekend, may believe they have a point to prove, etc. Not something you can really measure in terms of numbers, but one thing you can measure is the previous prices that Chelsea have been at this season. So yeah, I'm just taking the opportunity of a potential overreaction.
Okay, what about both teams to score and over, Marco, here? Because I can't trust Chelsea, but the squad rotation, they will bring in proper players. And 99% of the players they will bring in would get into the Southampton 11.
Yeah, that's true. I found this one really tricky because I got question marks over both teams. With Southampton, you're trying to judge whether they've signed off for the season, and recent Premier League results and efforts. 1-1 against Leeds last week, but before that, defeats against Watford, Newcastle, and Villa. An argument to say that all their eggs went into the FA Cup basket for the quarter-final with City. Lost that, so now they're in mid-table obscurity, and perhaps motivation is lacking. But then you got Chelsea, who are in the middle of those two ties against Champions League, against Real Madrid in the Champions League. So they've never lost back-to-back games in the Premier League under Tuchel, and I don't think they will sort of have that record on their copybook this week. But two really poor displays. I put the Brentford down to immediately coming after the international break, and eyes on the Madrid prize. But the performance midweek was puzzling. I think if you're being positive, you would say that Real Madrid were clinical, scored from a mistake from Mendy and Benzema scoring those two wonderful headers as well. But what worried me from a negative perspective was Reece James was nowhere near his influential best. He didn't look quite right to me, possibly not 100%. They're still missing Chilwell on the left, so you got Azpilicueta filling in there, and it just didn't work at all. And then Kovacic, on a bench rather instead of Jorginho, was confusing. Mount, who's normally pretty key and pivotal to Chelsea's positive performances, he was anonymous. Pulisic barely came into the game as well. So you got a lot of key players there who underperformed and need a kind of shake-up, really. So question marks over Chelsea, but I don't want to sort of beat them up too much because it's just two games, and they're still a quality football team. They're still the Champions League holders, and they're still third in the Premier League. So they still have that ability. It's just how they're going to attack this game, knowing what's happening in Madrid next midweek as well. So I know the cushion in the top four is down to about 5 points now. So they do need to go to Southampton and put on a performance. But yeah, ultimately, if I was having a bet, I would be pro Chelsea, just down to the price, which Stinch has outlined brilliantly.
Yeah, and goals. I think this. I'm not going to add it here, but I'm probably going to have a look at the both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. I expect so many players to come in from the Chelsea lineups. The one thing about you learn that as being a professional footballer is when you're tired, the first thing that goes is your decision making. And I saw with Chelsea last night 5 or 6 players, including the goalkeeper, that were caught in 2-3 minds because they hadn't worked out. What happens is when you play at the elite level, that you know exactly what you want to do with the ball before it gets there. I felt last night when I was watching the Real Madrid game is they were getting the ball, then they were deciding what they wanted to do, which means they're not quite at their sharpest selves. Now, listen, not many teams are, but when you've got Chelsea's squad, you would expect them. So maybe fresh legs are going to come in, but with fresh legs, you get fresh minds. Yeah, I mean, listen, I can see Chelsea winning, and I see where Stinch is coming from at -120. It looks like an absolute gift, but so does the both teams to score and over. Let's have a little look at the official picks because I had to leave it well alone. But Chelsea -120, don't complicate it, from Stinch, who's on a great run.